Hey folks, how's it going? So we've had our elections now, our midterm elections, and I just wanted to go over a couple of thoughts that I had in regards to that. A lot of conservatives were predicting a red wave or red tsunami. That didn't materialize, and I believe a lot of that has to do with there's some division among the Republicans between those who support Trump and those who don't. So there wasn't a red wave. So a lot of Republicans, a lot of conservatives are disappointed. Although it's still a little early to call who's going to have control of the House. I believe it's going to flip to the Republicans this time. That's the way it's looking. There's still a handful of seats up for grabs because, like here in Georgia, Walker and Warnock are most likely headed to a runoff election, and there's a couple of other states where it's just too close to call right now, and they may be running to runoffs as well, or whatever their state does. And for the most part, there were some Democrats that lost to Republicans, and there were some Republicans that lost to Democrats. And you know what you would normally expect. And there were some Democrats that got reelected regardless of what they've done or what they're able to do. That's not surprising either. One that surprised me was Fetterman. And nothing against the man or his medical condition or anything like that, but I think that's just another example of how Democrats are willing to vote anyone in to keep a Republican out of office. That's just my opinion. Because you've got a man that suffered a stroke, and that's a serious medical condition, and the effects of a stroke can be devastating. My grandfather had about 7 strokes before he died, so I know full well the damage it can do to a person, and it's nothing to make fun of. But that being said, the fact that voters were overwhelmingly willing to vote in someone who had a diminished mental capacity due to a serious medical condition over a Republican candidate, in my mind, solely because he was a Democrat, not a Republican, that just goes to show that's one more example of the divide in this country. You've got other Democrats that were reelected despite a lot of the horrible things that they've done. You've even got one Democrat candidate that was elected to office regardless of the fact that he died a month before the election took place. Now, to be fair, in some states, that's not enough time to remove a candidate from a ballot and replace with a new write-in or something like that. So, in this case, it's going to trigger a special election, but you have to stop and think for a minute because it highlights a serious issue with voting in this country. The man died a month before the election, and he still got elected. So it's not so much that it was too late to take him off the ballot and put somebody else in his place, but it highlights the fact that a lot of voters And in my opinion, a vast majority of voters in this country are so uninformed and ignorant about what's going on. I would be willing to bet the vast majority of the people that voted for him didn't even know he had died. They just voted Democrat on the ticket. Either because they're ignorant that he was deceased, or they're so polarized into their one party that they couldn't see what was going on, and they couldn't see any other option but to vote Democrat, whatever it may be. Either one of those is a serious issue, and speaks to one of the problems with the elections going forward in this country, that people are so polarized and divided in this country that they'll vote for anyone over the opposing party, whether they have diminished mental capacity due to a medical condition, or whether they're dead. Whatever it takes to avoid voting for the opposite party, right? We can't let the opposite party get in control. And to be fair, a few years ago, I believe it was Nevada, the same thing happened with a Republican candidate. He died a month before the election, but the difference being with that election was that state's laws were laid out in a way that, with him winning the election even though he was deceased, it didn't trigger a special election like the one this week did. What happened was it left an opening for it was left up to the Republican Party to seat someone in his place, and I know there's going to be a lot of people that probably don't like that was an option, but that's how that state runs those. That's how their rules are in regards to the elections. So that's a state issue. That's not necessarily one party doing something underhanded. That's just the way the regulations and rules are set up in that state. But I have to go back to what I've said before when I was talking about a red wave will not save America, because a lot of people were counting on a red tsunami or a red wave in the hopes of saving America from socialism. And I made a video about that, explaining why I didn't think, even if there was a red wave, that it would change anything, that it would make any difference. Well, we saw that there was no red wave. Now, there's been some seats flipped in both directions. It's still up for debate as to who's going to control the House, but most people are calling it for the Republicans. The Senate is looking like it might lean to the Democrats, so it's going to be a split government, basically. Not a lot is going to change in that instance. Depending on how many seats of the remaining elections are flipped, the Republicans could potentially get a majority, or the Democrats could potentially maintain the majority. But either way it goes, I still don't see that there's gonna be much of a change in the way the government is run, because I've said it before, without a clear majority like the Democrats have, the Republicans wouldn't be able to do anything, because Biden has already talked about vetoing anything that they do that they try to pass that he doesn't like. And you know, the elections are just a mess all the way around. I think, in my opinion, this election, and you would have to dig into different races in different states and things, but it highlights the divide in this country that I think is continuing to grow. It hasn't settled down. It hasn't ceased growing. The divide and the division is continuing to expand. The sides continue to get more polarized. So I don't see any coming together on that, in that regards. It's a shame. I hate to say that, but that's what I'm seeing. You have two parties with two vastly different ideologies. That there's just no middle ground anymore. Broadly speaking, I mean, yeah, certain people of Democrats and certain individuals from the conservative side, you know, individuals can sometimes meet and find some middle ground. But as far as the political parties themselves, we're starting to see more and more two different faces of America. Some people are saying this is just further evidence that the U.S. will move towards balkanization, a national divorce, if you will, as some are referring to it. I don't know what's coming, really. I just know that there's more movement apart than there is together. And the few that are coming together to meet in the middle and work on bills together to come to a compromise, they're compromising on things that they have no business compromising on. They're coming together and they're compromising and they're making agreements to do things that infringe on people's rights and freedoms. They're doing things that institute more regulation, more government control, more taxation, more spending. The end effects, the consequences of which are not going to be good. Fortunately, though, one thing that I was looking at was the potential for a lot of protests and violence following the midterm election. But seeing as how the red wave kind of fizzled out a little bit, and the energy level on the left was fairly the same, neither one made drastic major gains or shocking gains. I don't think we're going to see any kind of violence, at least not right now. I mean, I could be completely mistaken about that, but at least for the time being, I don't think there's going to be any more protests and riots and violence like there was back in 2020. Anyway, I think my takeaway from this is that nothing is really going to change. And I've been losing faith in the voting process and the election process in this country for a while now. And I'm not saying there was a bunch of voter fraud and cheating and stuff like that going on in this election. I don't think there was. There may be a little bit here and there, but there's always been a little bit. I just think that, speaking as a conservative, or conservative / libertarian, because I really don't fit the description of either of those categories. I don't think there were enough Republicans, hardcore Republicans, elected to make much of a difference. They're kind of cut off at the knees right now, unless they have a majority control in the House and the Senate. They're not going to be able to get anything done, which is what I said in my previous video. Again, it's also looking like the Democrats may maintain their advantage in the government, which means they'll be able to push through anything they want. And we've already seen that their bills have skyrocketed inflation. Our deficit, our spending is out of control. It's drastically out of control. We're on the verge of World War III because of a lot of their policies and a lot of the things that they're doing. And if you try to flip that onto Trump and say it's Trump's fault about the war in Ukraine and all, you need to get over Trump. Trump is no longer in office. And it's my belief that even if he ran for president in 2024, he would not stand a chance. That's my belief. But he's not in office. Get over it. Everything that we're going through right now, all the economic suffering, all the economic pain we're dealing with, the threats of war, all of this falls on the Biden administration. None of this happened until after Biden took office. So these individuals that keep trying to blame everything on Trump, you really need to grow up and look and face facts. The man is no longer in office. He hasn't been in office for 2 years. At some point, you've got to face the facts that the president, the man in office right now, is the one responsible for what's going on. So, going forward, like I said, I don't think anything's going to change. Inflation, I think, still going to climb. Government spending is still going to continue to be out of control. This government is like a person that has gotten laid off and that is just living off credit cards with no regard to that bill that's going to come due eventually. They just keep building up that debt, keep racking up that debt to maintain a lifestyle that they can't really afford anymore. So going forward, you can't really you can't count on these elections or any politician, Republican or Democrat, I don't care what party you are, you can't count on any politician or any election to make things better in this country. All you can do is focus on yourself and what you can do to take care of yourself and your family. If there's going to be any improvement in your life, it's going to have to come from you. You're going to have to take responsibility for your life, your lifestyle, and if you want to make improvements in the best way you can. You're going to have to become more self-reliant. And that means building up not only an emergency food supply, so if there is a disaster, if there is an emergency, you're able to feed yourself and your family. being able to take care of yourself financially if you lose your job is going to be critical. Now, whether that's emergency savings, investments, gold and silver, side hustles, however you need to configure that, it's going to be different for every individual. Everybody's going to have their own way of doing it. What works for me is not necessarily going to work for you, and vice versa. But we all need to start taking responsibility for ourselves and our own lives and stop looking to the government to fix our problems and take care of us and keep us safe and fed. That's our responsibility as individuals. As adults, that's our responsibility. It's our responsibility to do that for our families. There are far too many people in this country that expect the government to take care of everything for them. And in my opinion, that's one of the reasons this country is so screwed up right now. Too many entitled people living off the government rather than taking responsibility for their own lives. So going forward, as always, keep prepping. Food, water, a way of defending yourself, a network of friends and family to barter with, to rely on in case of an emergency. Do what you have to do to protect yourself financially. We're looking ahead at a couple of really hard years. More than a couple, to be honest with you, because again, even if, and I'm going to say this again, even if in 2024, if Republicans have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, I don't see any way of reversing course. We've gone too far down the path of socialism and economic destruction. It would take decades of being very, very financially responsible as a country to dig ourselves out of this hole, and I just don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see any way it will happen. So stop looking to the government, stop looking to politicians, stop listening to these people that say, well, if you vote for me, I'll do this, 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 and your life is going to be better. Because it's not. That's not going to happen. Whether you're a Democrat and you think socialism is a good thing, and I promise you it's not. It's not what you think it's going to be. The results you're going to get are not what you think they're going to be. Or you're a Republican and you think one man like Trump or DeSantis is going to save the country, and I promise you they're not. My own beliefs, they could do a lot of good, but I don't, call me a pessimist if you want, I just don't believe, I believe we're past the point of saving as a country. The America that I grew up in, that I remember from my childhood, that's gone. And I don't think it's ever coming back. Whether we break up like the Soviet Union did into individual states, balkanization, or whether we remain one country but just fall into chaos and civil war, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to try to make that prediction because I'm pretty sure I'll be wrong. There's just way too many variables to figure that out. There's a lot of people a lot smarter than me that could give some good insights, but even those people, as smart as they are, won't be able to tell you exactly what's going to happen. It's impossible for anybody to know. So, again, we have to stop looking to government. We have to stop looking to politicians to fix the problems for us. We have to start fixing those problems ourselves. Stop being reliant on government. Stop being reliant on the system and the mechanisms of support that the system offers you. You have to be more self-reliant, more resilient as an individual, as families, as a people. That's the only way we're going to make it through all the difficult times that are coming. Whether it's Civil War, Balkanization, Great Depression 2.0, whatever, World War III, that's the only way we'll survive any of that, is to become more self-reliant and more resilient on an individual level, as within our own families, our own communities, and as a country, for however long it lasts. Anyway, that's all I've got. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope this was useful. I hope you could gain something from it. Now that the election's over, focus on the things that you can do to make a difference in your life. That's what you need to be doing from now. If there's one thing you take away from this video, focus on the things that you can do that make an improvement on your life now, and if things get really bad in the future. Again, I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. And until next time, folks, take care, keep prepping, and I'll catch you later.